So we finished up the notes yesterday on the quadratic formula, and some of the problems were definitely a little more challenging than the types of problems that we did on Monday and Tuesday this week. We're going to work through one of these problems with you. So we've got a worksheet here, solving using the quadratic formula. And I'm just going to kind of take you step by step through one of the problems. And I figure out, see if I can find one of the harder ones to do. Not necessarily harder, but just maybe a little more involved with the steps that we have to look at. So the first thing, use the quadratic formula to solve the equation. I'm going to write that quadratic formula up top here just to remind us what that quadratic formula is. Negative b plus or minus. See if you can fill out the rest of it. Trying to do that maybe from memory, not a requirement, but hopefully you've used it a couple of times now and you might have that thing memorized. So negative b plus or minus the square root, and then we have b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2a. So the quadratic formula. Now we're going to look to see if we can do one of the ones again, as I said, that have a little more work involved in the problem. And it looks like number 3 might be a good one to kind of look at. So 1, 2, and 3 again are set equal to 0. Notice number 4 has a negative 3, and we have to make sure that it's set equal to 0. So that's like one thing in your mind you have to keep in there. You got to set it equal to 0. This one, number 3, is equal to 0. So starting with a is 2, b is negative 4, c is negative 1. Now that quadratic formula, the plug part, we're plugging in a negative b. Well, it's already negative, so it's a positive 4. And now we're looking at the square root part. B squared is negative 4 minus 4 times a times c. Then we're dividing that by 2 times a, and now a is the number 2. Okay, first step done. Second step, now we have to start simplifying, and there's a couple of steps involved with simplifying. So I'm looking underneath the square root and doing that negative 4 squared part first, so that's 16. And then behind it, multiplying negative 4 times 2 times negative 1. And that makes 8, so 16 plus 8. And then we're dividing that by 2 times 2, which is 4. Now remember, that division sign, the fraction bar, that really is like a big parentheses. Everything above the parentheses needs to be simplified first. Don't do anything with the 4 on the bottom, even though you want to. You got to kind of break yourself of that habit. So we're going to ignore the 4 in the denominator. We have to do the stuff in the numerator first. We're going to add 16 plus 8 together. That gives us 24. Still thinking about the numerator. We have the square root of 24. We need to split this up into 2 numbers, one of them being a perfect square, because we have to simplify this. We got to break down the square root. So the square root of 24 can be broken down into 4 times 6. So when I write my next step, I have the 4, I have a plus or minus. The square root of 4 becomes 2. So that part changes, it's a perfect square. We keep the square root of 6, that part didn't change. We divide that by 4. Now the last part of this problem is to do that crisscross. So we're going to try and simplify this diagonally. So we're going to go one way, and we're going to take 4 divided by 4. 4 divided by 4 becomes a 1. And then I still have the plus or minus. And now I'm going to do the other way. We got a crisscross, so now we're going the other way. We have 2 divided by 4. 2 divided by 4 really is 1/2. And then the last part is the square root of 6, and that just stays with the 1/2. So this answer is x equals 1 plus or minus 1/2, and then the square root of 6. So that is one type of problem that you are going to see on this worksheet. The other type of problem that you could see on this worksheet I know I'm kind of jumping backwards here, but would be similar to something that looks like number 1. I'm going to work through this one a little quicker. So looking at number 1, A is 1, B is -3, C is 2. Plugging in my numbers here, going a little faster. So I did the plugging part, plugged everything in. Now I have to do the chugging part. Plug and chug. So underneath the square root, we have -3 squared. Any negative number makes a positive, which is a 9. The 3 numbers behind it, -1, 4 times 1 times 2 is -8. Careful there, it's negative this time. -4, +1, +2. And then on the bottom, 2 times 1 is 2. Doing a little more simplifying. 9 minus 8 is the square root of 1. I need to continue to simplify. Can you take the square root of 1? Yes, you can. The square root of 1 is 1. So I'm going to just move up here because I'm out of space vertically. So this becomes 3 plus or minus 1 and then divided by 2. I can actually continue to work through this because on the top I have a 3 and a 1. So I can split this up into 3 plus 1 divided by 2 because that's what the plus part means, and then 3 minus 1 divided by 2. Well, 3 plus 1 is 4 divided by 2. 3 minus 1 is 2 divided by 2. So if I take 4 and divide it by 2, I get 2. If I take 1 or 2 divided by 2, I get 1. This is the second type of problem that you will see on this worksheet, where you're going to have a perfect square and you'll have nice numbers as answers. So I actually did 2 for you. I was only going to do 1, but I did 2, and now you have 4 more to do. Make sure you have all the material from this week submitted by Friday. Have a great day.